Have you ever found yourself driving alone on a deserted road in the dead of night? The darkness pressing in, your headlights barely cutting through the gloom, strange shadows dancing at the edge of your vision. Well, buckle up, dear viewers, because tonight's tale will make you think twice about those late-night drives. I'm about to share a chilling encounter that could have ended in unspeakable horror. A story that will make you question the safety of even the most familiar journeys. This is the story of the abandoned gas station, a midnight trap. It's a tale of isolation, fear, and the realization that sometimes the real monsters aren't hiding under our beds, but waiting for us in the most unexpected places. Before we dive into this nightmarish account, I want you to take a moment. Look around you. Are you somewhere safe and cozy? Is your door locked? Because once we start, you might find yourself jumping at every little sound, every shifting shadow. And if you're planning a long drive anytime soon, especially at night, well, you might want to reconsider after hearing this. Ready to have your sense of security shattered? Then let's begin, but remember, you've been warned. Picture this. It's a balmy summer night, the kind where the air feels thick and heavy, clinging to your skin. Our protagonist, let's call him Alex, is embarking on a journey he's made countless times before. For years, he's been making an annual pilgrimage to his uncle's lakeside cabin, a cherished family tradition that's always been a source of joy, relaxation, and fond memories. But this year, something's different. The familiar road feels alien under the cover of darkness. Work commitments have forced Alex to start his journey late, much later than he's ever attempted before. As the last traces of sunlight fade from the rearview mirror, he finds himself plunging into the heart of night on a lonely stretch of highway. The radio crackles with late-night talk shows and melancholic country tunes, providing little comfort as the miles roll by. Alex tries to focus on the excitement of seeing his family, but an inexplicable sense of unease begins to creep over him. The dense forest looms on either side of the road, a dark wall of timber that seems to press closer with each passing mile. As our driver pushes on through the darkness, the trees seem to lean in, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers, scraping the night sky. Shadows flicker at the edge of his headlights. Was that movement, or just his tired mind playing tricks? It's an unsettling scene, but nothing compared to what awaits him. Suddenly, a glance at the dashboard sends a chill down Alex's spine. The fuel gauge is dangerously low, a detail he'd overlooked in his rush to get on the road. The little orange light blinks accusingly, a harbinger of the terror to come. Panic sets in as he realizes the gravity of his situation. He's miles from anywhere, surrounded by an impenetrable forest, with no guarantee of finding a gas station in time. The empty road stretches endlessly before him, mocking his predicament. Alex's mind races. Should he turn back? But the last town is too far, he'll never make it. Should he pull over and wait for daylight? The thought of spending hours alone in the dark forest makes his skin crawl. His palms grow sweaty on the steering wheel as he realizes he's running out of options and time. Just when all hope seems lost, when Alex is contemplating the very real possibility of being stranded in this wilderness, a sight appears that seems like salvation. A crudely made sign emerges from the darkness, illuminated by his headlights. Gas station, next exit. It's not much. In fact, its ramshackle appearance sends a flutter of apprehension through Alex's chest. But it's all he's got. With no other choice, heart pounding, he takes the exit. As he turns off the main road, the asphalt gives way to gravel, then to dirt. The car bumps and jostles, the sound of stones pinging against the undercarriage unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. Alex finds himself praying, to whom or what he's not sure. All he knows is that he desperately hopes he's made the right decision. But as the dirt road winds deeper into the forest, a creeping sense of dread begins to whisper that perhaps this decision might cost him everything. As Alex rounds a final bend, his headlights finally illuminate his destination, and his heart plummets. The gas station before him is a decrepit shell of a building, a decaying remnant of a long-gone era. Windows are shattered, their jagged edges glinting menacingly in the moonlight. The roof sags dangerously, looking as if it might collapse at any moment. Where gas pumps should stand, there are only rusty islands, their metal corroded and twisted into nightmarish shapes. It's painfully clear that this place hasn't seen a customer or any human activity in years, perhaps decades. The air feels thick with neglect and an undercurrent of something sinister. Alex's hopes of a quick fill-up and a return to his journey evaporate like mist in the morning sun. Our protagonist is now truly stranded, his car sputtering on its last fumes, in front of an abandoned building in the middle of nowhere. The forest seems to press in around him, the trees forming an impenetrable barrier. He does the only thing he can, pulls out his phone with trembling hands and dials for a tow truck. As he explains his location to the dispatcher, his voice shakes. The woman on the other end assures him help is on the way, but her words bring little comfort. Alex settles in for an anxious wait, acutely aware of how vulnerable he is, a sitting duck in a sea of shadows. Little does Alex know his night of terror is only just beginning. 30 minutes crawl by, each second feeling like an eternity. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant hoot of an owl. Alex's nerves are frayed, every sound making him jolt. He tries to distract himself, scrolling through his phone, listening to music. But nothing can shake the feeling that something is off. As his eyes adjust to the darkness, he begins to notice something that turns his blood to ice. There's movement in the shadows of the old gas station. At first, it's just a flicker. So quick, he's sure he imagined it. He blinks hard, rubbing his eyes. It must be exhaustion playing tricks on him, right? But then he sees it again. A shadow detaching itself from the deeper darkness of the collapsed doorway. Another flitting between the rusty remnants of the gas pumps. Alex's breath catches in his throat, his heart pounding so hard he's sure it's audible in the quiet car. He tries desperately to convince himself it's just his imagination, fueled by fear and the strange surroundings. But deep down, a primal part of him knows he is not alone out here, and whatever is out there, it's not friendly. Her voice cuts through the silence like a knife, shattering Alex's last hopes of this all being a bad dream. "Hey buddy, come here." The words are barely above a whisper, but in the stillness of the night they're as clear as a gunshot. Alex freezes, his entire body rigid with terror. He doesn't dare move, doesn't dare breathe. Perhaps if he stays perfectly still, whatever's out there will think the car is empty and leave him alone. But the voice comes again, a little louder this time. "I know you're in there, don't be afraid, we just want to help." "We?" The word echoes in Alex's mind, multiplying his fear. There's more than one. How many are out there, hidden in the shadows, watching him? Peering through the gloom, heart threatening to burst from his chest, Alex makes out a figure standing by the gas station. The sight sends a jolt of pure, unadulterated terror through him. It's a man, or at least it looks like a man, but something about him is wrong. The stranger begins to approach Alex's car, his movements jerky and unnatural. As he draws nearer, details become clearer, each one adding to the growing horror. The man's appearance is disheveled, his clothes hanging in tatters. His hair is wild and matted, his skin pale and waxy in the moonlight. But it's his eyes that freeze Alex's very soul. They gleam with an unnatural light, wide and unblinking, filled with a hunger that has nothing to do with food. The stranger stops just short of the car, close enough that Alex can see the yellowed teeth behind his cracked lips as he speaks again. "You're running on empty, aren't you?" The man's voice is raspy, as if he hasn't used it in a very long time. "I can help. We have gasoline, more than enough to get you on your way." A spark of hope flares in Alex's chest, quickly doused by suspicion and fear. Why would this strange man have gas? Why is he out here in the middle of the night? As if reading his thoughts, the stranger continues, his tone taking on a wheedling quality. "It's free, no charge. All you have to do is step out of the car and follow me. It'll only take a minute." Every instinct in Alex's body is screaming danger. The hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. There's no way he's leaving the relative safety of his locked car to follow this person into that decrepit building. In a voice that trembles despite his best efforts, Alex manages to force out a reply. No, thank you, I'm fine." The change in the stranger's demeanor is instant and terrifying. The friendly smile vanishes, replaced by a blank, almost predatory stare. His entire body goes rigid, head tilting at an unnatural angle as he regards Alex through the glass. For a long, horrifying moment, neither moves. Alex is certain that at any second the man will smash through the window and drag him into the night. He fumbles for his keys, ready to try and make a desperate escape, even knowing his gas tank is nearly empty. Just as the tension reaches its breaking point, just as Alex is sure his racing heart will give out from fear, a sound shatters the silence. It's the most beautiful thing he's ever heard, the rumble of an approaching engine. The tow truck. It's here. Alex nearly sobs with relief, but his moment of salvation quickly turns into a scene of nightmare. As the glow of headlights appears on the road, the stranger's head snaps towards the sound. For a split second, his face contorts into a mask of inhuman rage. Then, with a speed that seems impossible, he bolts for the cover of the trees. But that's not the end of the horror. As the stranger flees, Alex witnesses a sight that will haunt him for the rest of his days. No fewer than 8 shadowy figures rise from their hiding places around the gas station. They emerge from behind rusted oil drums, from the shadows of the building, even from shallow ditches in the ground. These beings are even less human-looking than the first. Their movements are erratic, almost spider-like. Some lope on all fours, while others twist and contort as they run. In the brief illumination of the approaching headlights, Alex catches glimpses of pale, mutated flesh, of elongated limbs and gaping maws filled with needle-like teeth. The realization hits Alex like a physical blow, nearly causing him to black out. This was no chance encounter, no simple robbery attempt. This was a carefully laid trap, and he had driven right into it. What horrors awaited him had he stepped out of his car? The mind reels at the possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. As the last of the creatures disappears into the forest, the tow truck pulls up beside Alex's car. The driver, a burly man with a concerned look on his face, approaches cautiously. "Everything okay here, buddy? You look like you've seen a ghost." Alex, his voice shaking, manages to stammer out a response. There were people, creatures. They tried to get me to leave my car. They're in the woods now." The tow truck driver's expression darkens. He's clearly skeptical, but something in Alex's terror-stricken face convinces him not to dismiss the story outright. "Let's get your car hooked up and get out of here. I'll call the sheriff once we're back in town." As they wait for the police to arrive, Alex can't shake the feeling of how close he came to an unthinkable fate. His mind keeps replaying the events of the night, each recollection bringing a fresh wave of terror. The local sheriff and his deputies search the area around the abandoned gas station, but as expected, the mysterious figures have vanished without a trace. All that remains are some strange tracks in the mud, tracks that don't quite match any known animal or human print. In the days and weeks that follow, Alex struggles to come to terms with his experience. He tells his story to anyone who will listen, but most dismiss it as an overactive imagination fueled by exhaustion and darkness. Only he knows the truth of what lurked in the shadows that night. The road where it all happened is now closed for construction, a new highway being built to bypass the old forest route. Part of Alex is relieved, knowing fewer travelers will pass by that haunted spot. But another part of him wonders, where have those creatures gone now? What new trap are they laying for unsuspecting victims? Days turn into weeks, and Alex finds himself struggling with sleepless nights and an unshakable sense of paranoia. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside his window sends his heart racing. The world that once felt safe and predictable now seems full of hidden dangers. Therapists and friends try to help, but their reassurances fall flat. They weren't there. They didn't see the shadows moving in the darkness, didn't hear the whispered threats. How could they possibly understand? Alex, it's natural to feel this way after a traumatic experience, his therapist. But you need to confront these fears, not let them control you. Alex nods mechanically, but his mind is elsewhere, replaying the events of that night over and over. Meanwhile, the local sheriff hasn't forgotten Alex's story. Though skeptical, he can't shake the nagging feeling that something was off about that night. He orders a more thorough investigation of the area around the old gas station. What they find only deepens the mystery. Strange symbols carved into trees, remnants of makeshift campsites, and more of those bizarre, unidentifiable footprints. It's clear that someone, or something, has been living out there, in the shadows. The sheriff shares his findings with a few trusted colleagues, but without concrete evidence, there's little they can do. The forest is vast, and whatever lurks within it is skilled at evading detection. Alex tries to rebuild his life, finding solace in the routine of his job. The quiet, the smell of old books, the simple interactions with customers, it's a small, fragile sanctuary from his fears. One day, an old man enters the store. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace, his eyes sharp and knowing. He browses for a while before approaching Alex with a book in hand, a thick, leather-bound volume titled Legends of the Lost and Forgotten. You might find this interesting, the old man says, his voice low and gravelly. There's a chapter in here about creatures that live in the shadows, preying on the unwary. Alex's hands tremble slightly as he takes the book. The old man smiles knowingly and leaves without another word. The book is filled with old myths and legends, stories of creatures that lurk just beyond the edge of human understanding. Some of the tales are eerily similar to Alex's experience. Shadowy figures, inhuman movements, whispered voices. One story in particular catches his eye. It speaks of a group of beings known as the Lurkers, ancient and malevolent entities that dwell in forgotten places, setting traps for those who wander too close. Alex dives deeper into his research, uncovering more about these Lurkers. They are said to be drawn to places of great despair and abandonment, feeding off the fear and suffering of their victims. The more he learns, the more he understands the true danger he was in that night. The gas station wasn't just an abandoned building, it was a hunting ground, and he had been the prey. Armed with knowledge and a newfound resolve, Alex knows what he must do. He can't live in fear forever. He needs to confront these creatures, to find a way to stop them before they claim another victim. It's a dangerous plan, but he can't rest until he faces his fears head-on. He makes his way back to the forest, to the place where it all began. The air is thick with tension as Alex steps into the shadows, his flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. Every sound is magnified, every movement in the corner of his eye sending his heart racing. He reaches the gas station, its dilapidated structure looming over him like a ghost from his nightmares. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what lies ahead. As he explores the building, he finds more evidence of the creature's presence. Strange markings on the walls, piles of bones, remnants of past victims. But there's something else too, a faint, rhythmic chanting coming from deep within the forest. He follows the sound, his heart pounding in his chest. The chanting grows louder, more insistent, drawing him towards a clearing. There he finds them, the Lurkers, gathered around a fire, performing some dark, twisted ritual. For a moment, Alex is paralyzed with fear, but then something within him snaps. He raises his camera, taking pictures as evidence, and then steps forward, shouting to draw their attention. The Lurkers turn towards him, their eyes glowing with malevolent hunger. Alex fights with everything he has, his flashlight, his fists, his wits. It's a desperate struggle, but he refuses to give in to the fear. In the midst of the chaos, he remembers something from the book, a way to banish the Lurkers back to the shadows. He recites the words, his voice shaking but strong. The effect is immediate. The Lurkers screech in agony, their forms dissolving into smoke and shadow. One by one they vanish, leaving Alex alone in the clearing. He collapses to the ground, tears of relief streaming down his face. It's over. The nightmare is finally over. Alex returns to town, his evidence and his story convincing the sheriff and his deputies. They organize a search of the forest, but find no trace of the Lurkers. Still, they take precautions, warning travelers to avoid the area. For Alex, life slowly returns to normal. He still has nightmares, but they are less frequent, less terrifying. He knows the Lurkers are gone, banished by his courage and determination. As we close Alex's chapter, we're reminded of the strength that lies within us all. No matter how dark the night, how terrifying the shadows, there is always a way to fight back. Alex's story is a testament to the power of knowledge, courage, and the human spirit. So what would you have done in his situation? And what will you do the next time you find yourself facing the unknown? In the dim light of dawn, a new traveler makes their way down the old forest road. They drive past the now empty gas station, oblivious to the horrors that once lurked there. But in the depths of the forest, unseen by human eyes, something stirs. The shadows never truly disappear. They merely bide their time, waiting for the next unwary soul to wander too close.